very excited to be joined this time by something slightly different. That we have another podcast on my interview. I'm very excited to be joined by the lovely Track by Track boys, Dan and Will. Hello, both. How are you doing?
Hello. Very good, thanks.
Yeah,
How are
great
you?
to see you. There you go. That's already started at the start. You know, it's like everybody wants to speak at once. um, Will, you've been doing some painting, you were telling me before we came on.
Yes, we should have been headed off to Glastonbury this weekend. Instead, we've got guests coming down from London for the weekend, so I'm painting the spare room. And that guest actually is none other than...
Dun, dun, dun.
It's Dan.
It's me.
Wow. There you go.
Yeah.
Are you going to give him a sneak preview of the painted room over Zoom, or is he just going to...
No, it's going to be a surprise. I made sure I found out what his favourite colours were, so it definitely won't be those colours.
Great.
And I want the surprise because one of my favorite TV shows is Four in a Bed. So I'm going to go in and really judge him quite harshly, snoop around for any bits of dust and whatever else I find.
Indeed. Do you paint your room for every guest that comes, or is...
Yeah, it's bespoke guest service actually. That it's a bit diva-esque, I know, but it is Dan we're dealing with. So, like Mariah Carey, the room gets painted for specific requirements for guests. So I'm setting a precedent there for anyone else that comes to stay.
I know, right? It's set the bar high now for all the future guests. And Dan, where do we find you in the world?
Well, so I've not been painting, to be honest with you. I absolutely despise decorating. So I'm quite lucky that my other half, he does all of that. He prefers it if I stay out of the way. So before we start recording today, I've been working on the next phase of Track by Track, really. Some exciting things to come, a big announcement to come. So I've been doing a bit of that in the background.
Great. Working away. Well done. So, whilst we're talking about Track by Track, can you tell our lovely Glitterbeam listeners what is Track by Track and where is the birth of it? Dan, we'll start with you, seeing as you seem to be the one that's working on it currently.
Will's got he's sidelining on his painting and decorating project. So Track by Track, it started almost 3 years ago. And I think basically Will and I were at a place where we both loved music, loved pop music. We talk about it to death when we were together. And we were both sort of looking for a project, looking for something to do outside of our day jobs and whatever else was going on. So we started it as a podcast with no podcast kind of expertise behind us. We had a friend to teach us how to edit. And from there, pretty much every week, we've released an episode with each episode going track by track through what we think is a brilliant pop album.
Yeah, amazing. Well, that's like a lot of work, thinking it weekly for 3 years. Well done. That's amazing.
Quite tiring.
And what got you into doing this then? Will, have you got a background in music, or is it just a love of music, or?
Yeah, no background. Like Dan says, we're just big music fans, and we love pop music. And I think we discovered that we both had really broad tastes, so we weren't limited to just dance music or guitar music or pop music. We really liked everything, so long as it was good. And I think the general ethos of Track by Track is. What is the ethos to Track by Track?
No guilty pleasures.
No music, no artist or a guilty pleasure. So the joy of going from 1 week talking about Duran Duran or Oasis to talking about Steps the next week, we hold them all in great esteem and appreciate them all on their own merits. And it was just that love and that broad appreciation for just music. We just felt like there were a lot of kindred spirits out there that we wanted to connect with, and a lot of brilliant albums that we wanted to talk about, effuse about, and I guess sometimes just shine spotlights on, because we feel like they haven't been seen and they need more of a wider audience. And then everything else learning how to record, how to edit, how to market it. It just grew from there as we got into it, and as we started to release episodes. And we've not got tired of each other or doing it yet. If anything, Dan's making that face at me that he always does. So he doesn't. So yeah, we just a long way we continue at the moment.
Great. Well, you're inviting Dan to your house, so clearly there's still love there somewhere.
It's very much like a working retreat. It's not two friends meeting up. It's just business trip.
And he will have to clean whilst he's here as well.
Of course, especially that newly painted room. So guests on your show, you have been having a few. I feel like I'm stepping into some pros in the interview front here. Can you tell me about some of your favorite guests that you've had on? Any good conversations that have happened over the last 3 years?
I think one of the ones that sticks in my mind is when we got together with Jodie Harsh to talk about Madonna's music.
Amazing.
And Dan, I don't know if this is coincidence, but her music career just seemed to go huge shortly after that episode came out.
Yeah.
And now she's like signed to a label. She's working with huge artists. She's like on the radio, top of the music, dance music charts. But that was just such a huge bit of fun doing that. But also she's very, she's a bit of an enigma. So it was great to actually meet and sit down and kind of using our shared love of that album, kind of get to know her better as well. That was really fun.
Yeah, it's a really good tool.
Also,
chat, I think. Yeah, go on, Dan. Sorry.
And that was, so usually we don't, normally it's just Will and I talking, but every so often we like to get guests in for a different point of view. But that was a really cool day because in the afternoon we recorded with Andy Bell from Erasure and did a sort of a Zoom call with him to talk about their new album. And then we had to jump in a taxi and fly across London to get to Jodie Harsh's house to do that episode with her. So I think we really felt that day like we'd made it. And then quickly came crashing down to earth the next day.
We had to go back to our day jobs, and we were like, we should be doing this every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Wow, what a day. That sounds great. I did get to meet Andy Bell once in my life also, which was quite exciting. I was like performing at this LGBT like forum in Camden. They put on some show, and basically the London Gay Men's Chorus was supposed to perform but couldn't. But I was singing with them at the time. So they were like, oh, can you go and perform? I was like, okay, sure, I'll stand in for the whole of the London Gay Men's Chorus. And then got to open for Andy Bell. So that was fun. So I got to meet him backstage.
Incredible. And was he lovely?
Absolutely lovely. Yeah, we had the chat, had a little photo. I don't think they'd quite managed to get the crowd they were hoping for, but he got those few people in the room cheering and clapping along. So, it was a great day. So there you go. I can match at least one of your guest stories. That's it, though. That's where it stops. So what about over this last sort of while of doing this podcast? Is there any artists that have definitely remained as your favorite artists of all time, or any that have maybe shifted and moved on up in the list? What do you think, Will?
I think it's fair to say we've still got our firm favourites, and I think regular listeners won't have to guess that Pet Shop Boys, Duran Duran are kind of up there. Plus, we have our girl bands, the Spice Girls, Girls Loud. Have I missed anyone obvious there?
I think they're probably the favourites, and they're the ones we've covered most. Oh, and Kylie as well. Probably we've done quite a few Kylie episodes.
Of course.
Yeah. Danny Minogue and Bananarama.
Bananarama. Yeah. We're just going to keep doing this for the next half an hour.
Actually. Yeah, great.
Oh, and All Saints.
Just, yeah. Keep listening to them out. Basically, Mighty Hoopla lineup.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Have you seen the lineup for the weekend next year?
What, next year or this year?
the next year's the Weekender one in
in
Bognor Regis in January.
Regis. I've not seen that lineup. I've seen the one in London in September. But why? Who's appearing in Bognor Regis?
I think for that one they've really gone back to the like more vintage. I think this year's September one is a little bit more, I don't want to say mainstream, but current.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Bognor Regis, they've got headlining Sophie Ellis Bextor, and then they have I think they've got like Liberty X and Honeys and Snap
Bewitched,
and
I think, are there as well.
Bewitched.
Honeys, I remember listening to them a lot. There are a few songs they have.
They've got a new song out like last week, a brand new song.
That's cool.
It's not very good.
Sorry, Honeys, if you're listening.
It's not made it onto the new music drop for June.
Okay.
Sadly. Which is out on Saturday.
So, apart from listening to all these amazing artists, what are your day jobs? Are you allowed to talk about them? Are you allowed to tell it? I always find it really interesting, people working within music or podcasting or whatever, what else they do.
I'm an event manager or event producer, I should say, actually. And so interestingly, they do cross over a little bit. There's a few artists that we've worked with quite recently that I'm going to be working with in the near future for that on a music-based community program. I'm keeping it very vague because I am limited to what I can say about my day job, but yeah, it's in events, so it does sometimes go hand in hand with Track by Track, which is nice.
Oh, nice. I bet you will.
And I'm a manager in a very well-known global technology company.
Great.
And
I
Summers.
love it.
Sorry, Will, I've said too much.
Well, we can find you now. Love it. I love the vagueness of both those answers, but that's good to know. Thanks.
But we both did meet. We both did meet through work initially. That's how we became friends many years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah. Then we became colleagues after that.
And stopped being friends.
So, how was it one of you that drove forward the idea of doing the podcast, or how did that? Who came up with it first?
So I had this website called Trash, which was like a culture but music focused website. And I set it up with a friend who had already done, I think, 2 podcasts in the past, and he was doing a film podcast through Trash. So I thought, well, I want to do a podcast and I want to do a music podcast, but I've got no idea how I'd even think about starting this. And there's a fly buzzing around me. Sorry about that. And that's the time when Will and I were just chatting loads about Pet Shop Boys and B-sides and different producers they work with and upcoming things. So it made sense that if I was going to do this music podcast through Trash, that Will and I would do it together, because it just made sense.
And I think it's fair to say the podcast outgrew the website, and we kind of took it as the project, and it just became Track by Track without the Trash Music podcast bit on it.
Yeah. Was that last year or the year before that we took it?
Oh, it was a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I like to say it outgrew it. And also, I think we didn't know how we were going to feel about podcasting because we'd never done it before, but we quickly realized, and for me as the person running the Trash website, I quickly realized that actually I much preferred podcasting. Then I'd done music writing and journalism and reviews and stuff for years. So this was just much more new and exciting and fresh, and it had the possibilities of what we could do with it seemed quite endless as well, which then we've gone on, of course, to do the new music drop episodes and special editions and have guests come on. So still feels exciting as to where we can take it.
Yeah. And you do like the sound of your own voice.
Useful for podcasting, I guess.
I mean, it is. Track by Track is pretty much the only podcast I listen to. That's whenever, and I may have jumped ahead with a question that we often get asked if we're interviewed, but people are often surprised to know that I don't listen to podcasts, and even before doing Track by Track, I didn't listen to podcasts. I don't really have an answer as to why. I think it's just because when I listen to anything, it's just music. Yeah. Apart from this podcast, obviously.
Yeah, apart from this one.
Obviously, that is
Right.
the exception to the rule.
Who talks the most in the podcast? Have you actually worked it out? Is it a 50-50 split?
Ooh.
Are you both going to say each other? Who should talk more? Will, what are your thoughts on this? I feel like you might have a few.
I think it's 50-50. Whereas I think Dan often stays on track a lot more, and I will often pull us off.
So track by
Also,
track,
I think
on
it's
track.
sometimes it depends on what album we're talking about. There might be often it'll be ones that we've agreed to talk about together. So all the Pet Shop Boys things. But sometimes it'll be one that I've never heard before. So will kind of steer the ship and will know more about the history and has more personal history with it. And likewise, there might be something that I do the same with. So this year, for example, Gina G, one that Will bought, I'd never listened to that album before. And only a couple of weeks before that, we did Aurora, which Will had never heard before. So it's great actually for both of us because we are, as well as sharing our love of albums that we love with listeners, we're sharing it with each other as well.
Nice. Learning as you go. That's great. And so you mentioned there the new music drop, which is how I got to know you and your wonderful podcast. And thank you so much for giving me some support over the last year, which came about via Ben Howell, who did his mashup of Dua Lipa and the BBC News, which then, went everywhere. And then I think through that, and that's how I kind of ended up on your show when he can remix one of my tracks. But was supporting like independent artists something that you kind of had in mind, or did that happen just kind of naturally with this new one?
So with New Music Drop, we actually started it during the first lockdown last year, and it was like a self-isolation special editions of track by track, where we were talking about what music we were listening to, what new music was coming out. We'd also talk a bit about what was on TV, what we were watching in films, just to kind of give our listeners some more things to do and to get involved in when everyone was at home. And then we actually decided we wanted to make New Music Drop. We used to do it weekly, but it was just a hell of a lot of work every week, to be quite honest. So we've kind of streamlined it now. So we release an episode a month. And I think initially we wanted to talk about just new music in general, but we definitely take more of an approach to new artists, upcoming artists, because we love being able to use our platform to support upcoming artists, particularly queer artists as well. So we're always kind of keeping our ears out for great new artists that are coming out, from the LGBTQ plus community, as well as kind of broader as well. And every so often a real humdinger from a big artist drops in because we just can't not talk about it. Like last month, Duran Duran had a new single out, and it was almost like it would be strange if we didn't talk about that.
You'd get complaints.
From me, mainly.
Yeah. No, that's great. And it's nice to know that you're doing that year round, not just for the month of June and Pride Month, supporting those queer artists. Which leads me on to the challenge that I set you both for coming to chat to me today, which was to select a queer independent artist to play on the show, and then you can tell me a little bit about your selections as well. So Dan, let's start with you. Would you like to tell us what track you have chosen for the show?
Sure. So the track is Dance Again, and it's by Nico.
Nice. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about this track?
So this track was released in April, and it's just a fantastic. We've not actually said, but we've hinted that we really do love synth pop and music made with synths. This is definitely that. It's inspired by 90s dance, but also I think it's got a really fresh production, and influenced by the likes of like Robin and Charlie XCX. And the song is about, the song message can be taken two ways. Dance Again, is what we all want to do, we hoped we'll be doing already, but hopefully by July the 19th, or maybe a few weeks after that, we'll be all together dancing again in a room or a field or whatever. But it's also about missing home, which again is probably something that we've all experienced over the last few months or year and a bit. But it's what I love about the song as well is it's partly sung in Italian and partly in English. So lovely bilingual banger.
We love a bilingual banger. Lovely. Great. Very apt, it seems, then, in the messaging for this last year as well.
Definitely.
Sidetrack before we go into Will's selection. Eurovision thoughts? Is that a thing that you enjoy? Will, what do you think?
This is one of the ones where I would talk more than Dan, because I think it's definitely something I've kind of brought Dan more into loving and embracing. And every year we do a Eurovision special episode with our favourite tracks from the finalists for that year. And this year, such a good year this year. And fair play for them pulling it off during everything we're going through. And just so many brilliant bangers this year. I loved Sugar. Was just an amazing dance pop banger. That was one of my favourites. Very disappointed with our performance, but I just was far from the strongest song. It wasn't even in the top 10 strongest songs. Just very disappointing. Very just nothing, was it?
Yeah, it needs.
But it was great fun.
Yeah, I thought there was also lots of bangers, but also quite a few good, like, more ballady ones this year as well, which I quite enjoyed. So, Will, what track are you gonna pop on the show this week?
So I have gone for 8 Hours by Hula, who is a solo artist from London. He used to be in a pop duo, who kind of electro synth pop duo called Future Tape, who had a couple of tracks.
Yes. Okay. Now I know Future Tape. I've played, I think, at some point. So okay, cool. Got the connection now. That's good.
And I guess this track, 8 Hours, is the only track he's released so far, and it was from last year. And it's kind of an evolution, a bit more of a mature sound, still very much synth pop, a bit housey. But I think I'm really looking forward to it. Looking on his Instagram, he's writing and working on music. I'm looking forward to hearing more, because I think he's got a very unique voice in terms of like the message he's sharing in his songs. Definitely one who's a bit of a night owl and favors kind of very introspective thoughts, late night thoughts, and that definitely comes through in this track.
Nice, great. Well, thank you for both of your selections. Look forward to hearing them. If you were watching this on YouTube, you might have just seen my flatmate walk past as well. A little starring moment. I think he bought himself a new telly. I think that's what's happening. So, I mean, I'm excited because I'll get to watch it. So let's
watch this episode back on the telly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you might see it coming up the stairs in a moment. There's just two of us in this flat, so I'd hope I get to watch this telly. Otherwise, that's we'll need to.
What sort of size is it? How many inches has he got?
I think he didn't go for the biggest one. Somewhere in between, a sensible medium size. Yeah, but bigger.
Right thing to do.
Yeah, the bigger than the one we have currently. It's coming up right now. Let's see. Have you got the telly?
The big reveal.
Great. You need to walk it past the screen now because you're on camera. He's very confused. It's fine. Just walk up. It's okay. Here it is. Oh, it's pretty big.
Yeah. Sorry.
Hello. Oh, he can't hear us, can he?
He can't hear you. It's fine. Just take that telly in. Great.
It's a bush. The bush.
Holding his bush.
It's a big bush. There you go. Not sponsored by. Anyway, sorry. Side note there. Well, great. Thank you for sharing both those tracks. Is there anybody else that you've got your kind of ears and eyes out on? Anyone else that's kind of exciting and up and coming and around at this point? Or do we just need to tune into to your show to find out.
Great plug.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the last Saturday of every month is when we talk about new music on the new music drop. So normally 10 or 12 tracks. And the reason I'm stalling is because we only recorded the latest one yesterday, and I can't think of anyone that we spoke about. They were all that memorable. No, they actually were. But Will, who did we talk about?
Oh, do you know what I'm loving at the moment? We didn't talk about these on new music, but I'm just loving. We've had like Jesse and Roisin release their kind of extensions of their magnificent disco albums. Just literally over the last month or so. So I'm loving a bit more from them, which is fantastic. Maybe won't give anything away what's on new music drop, but there's definitely, I think. Hang on, I'm just looking through this playlist here. There's definitely Dan's really loving the Lady Gaga re-recordings by other artists, but I'm not so sold on it.
The Years and Years Edge of Glory, really, really enjoyed that one, more so than Kylie's Marry the Night, controversially maybe.
Okay.
Have you heard them, Venn?
I've not actually. I've not tuned into that yet. I feel like it just feels like there's just constantly so much new music at the moment, like, and also like so much like you're just saying, like remixes and repackaging of stuff and like live things and whatever else, like, is amazing. But I feel like I just don't have the time to catch up on it all. And also when I'm kind of looking, I mostly am listening consciously, I think, to more like independent artists. I feel like if I'm doing it, I feel like that's where my listening should go to first. But of course,
definitely,
Roisin is always on repeat, so she's got the exception. That's okay.
And thinking of like repackaged albums and independent artists, I think we both loved Tom Aspel's recent release, which the kind of remix version of Black Country Disco Tech, wasn't it?
Black Country Disco Tech. Oh, so like, yeah, that is definitely always on repeat. Yeah, so good. Like both versions, so like kind of different and like a really a good like way to go about it. If we were to like follow, this is how I want to do a remix album, that's like a good place to start, I think. Really exciting, amazing stuff. Yeah,
I was just going to say he's definitely on the cards as well for track by track with him as soon as our stars all align. But we've talked about that a few times now with him, so that's one to watch.
I'm there when that happens. Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for coming to chat to me and sharing your tracks for the show, and thanks for all your support for queer independent artists amongst the Kylies and Roisins and everybody else. But we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for the music.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
And thank you for the music. Yes, to quote one of our other favourite bands.
Yeah. Great. You managed to squeeze that in there. Well done. You can tick off those quotes. Cool. Well, thank you. And we'll see you, in the airwaves and in podcast land, I guess.
Super.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.